you refute him? Do you refute him?
Did Shamsi say with his mouth?
Well, no. Do you refute Salah Fawzan?
Did Shamsi say with his mouth?
What does the Quran say? It says in chapter 23, verses 1 to 6, and they will have succeeded, those who, and then it lists a few attributes, and then it says, and those who guard their private parts, except from their wives and those their right hand possess. Those their right hand possess means slavery. So that they will have succeeded. There is no, and then it says and there will be no blame upon them. So how can you say that there will be no blame upon people who don't have sex with their slaves, unless you're condoning not only slavery but also having sex with your slaves, having sex with people who you have complete authority over. That's coercion. That's duress.
James, can I respond?
Yeah. Go for it.
I would say that slavery has been practiced in every country, in every society throughout history, or for the majority of history. There has been various forms of slavery. Nowhere in the Bible is slavery forbidden.
Yeah.
Jesus never speaks about it, and he lived in a time and a place where slavery was rife and was practiced. It would have been a part of normal life. When Muhammad came, slavery was still a part of normal life. People kept slaves. It was legal. It was normal. And there are things in the Quran that talk about treating slaves well, which was probably revolutionary at the time. It was probably revolutionary. Okay, but hear me out. No one wants to be home. I agree.
Let's hear him out.
No, I'm not. I'll clarify. No, I'm not.
He's an undercover Sufi.
Yeah,
I'm joking,
who knows what I am?
Yeah.
I should refuse to answer that question, but I'll tell you I'm not. And he came and he said, treat the slaves well. There's probably a hadith that you picked out that out of context looks bad, or said he should.
Why do you assume it's out of context?
Well, because it's the only hadith we've mentioned today.
What do you mean it's the only hadith that's been mentioned today?
It's one hadith that you've mentioned out of all the many thousands of hadith, and the Quran is always more authoritative.
What do you mean when it's out of context, though?
I mean, you've pulled out one that suits your argument.
Are you saying, am I misrepresenting what that hadith states? Am I kind of twisting it?
But my overarching point here is that the Quran supersedes the hadith when it comes to authority.
Okay, and I've just read out the Quran verse saying they will have no blame upon them, those who they will have succeeded, those who guide their private parts, except from those their right hands possess. And there will be no blame from them. That's in the opening of chapter 23.
Yeah, because people did own slaves at that time.
Okay, so it's saying that there's no blame on owning slaves and having sex with them.
I know, I agree. It does say that. And 1,500 years later, that sounds horrendous.
Yeah, so it's not the ideal, moral example.
No, it's not. It's not, and you shouldn't live as people lived 1,500 years ago. But 1,500 years ago, saying things like "be good to your slaves" and a good thing to do is free a slave. I believe freeing a slave was a substitute for if you couldn't fast, or if you needed to make up for something, a way of repenting. A good thing to do was to free a slave. So 1,500 years ago, Islam took a step towards a slave-free society. 1,500 years later, we need to keep going forward and not go backwards to how it was then. And the people who follow the strict Salafi doctrine that you were talking about, that wants to revert back to the way Islam was in the first two generations of Islam, I think are going in the wrong direction, and they are literalists who look at the letter of the law rather than understand the spirit of the law, which is to progress and become better and be more moral.
Okay, so there are a couple of points there. So you said that in some ways it had a liberalizing effect and it made some improvements of what the situation was in Arabia at the time. Okay, that's true. Okay, but if you say, and now your deen is completed, this is the ideal set of rules to run society by, don't innovate from this, that's a bad thing, and that's what Muhammad did. And so he actually, even though he improved things a little bit, he prevented things from improving further, which is why it was the Western world who had to say to the Islamic world, no, actually outlaw slavery, actually go through with abolitionism. It was only when a pressure started being applied that then some Ottoman scholars started issuing fatwas saying, oh, actually, let's outlaw it now, okay? And then other parts of the Middle East, like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Egypt, Sudan, many other fully Muslim countries, they were actually much later than the rest of the Ottoman Empire in outlawing slavery. Okay, so I think we can admit
Saudi Arabia outlawed it in the 60s.
Yeah, 60s, yeah. And then they weren't even the last. Yeah. Like Mauritania was maybe 2007 or something. Yeah. But so I'm not going to say that Muhammad was the worst person ever born. Okay, but I don't think it's. You don't just say he did good for his time and leave it there. You need to look at things a bit more. You need to look at what actually resulted from his actions. And the other results of his actions are his doctrine of offensive jihad has caused a lot of death, a lot of people invading people who had never attacked them before, like the invasion of Arabs into Egypt and then down into Sudan, attacking the Christian kingdom of Makuria, and even within Muhammad's lifetime, some people often put forth the claim that Muhammad only defended himself and the Muslims only defended themselves, but that's not true. You just need to look at the last couple of years of his life, and you look at the attack that he made against the idol worshippers in Yemen. He just attacked them because they were worshipping idols. He did this to several people in the last couple of years of his life. He just attacked people because they weren't following the right religion. And there was no record of these people the Banu Tai, for example. They never attacked the Muslims. I think it was Dul Kulasa, the people in Yemen who were worshipping idols, they never attacked the Muslims either. So what was the other thing he said? Oh yeah, and if it's just Salafis who are literalists and adopt this letter of the law process? No, I don't believe so. Salafis are more literalists than other madhabs, other traditional schools of thought, but their main differences are on things like whether you should worship the graves of prophets. They would actually agree to a large extent about what the ideal Sharia society would look like. If you spoke to a traditionalist Hanafi, a traditionalist Shafi. Shafis, by the way, think that female genital mutilation is fard, is obligatory. Okay, so it's not just Salafis who follow, let's say, a Salafi madhab. Any of the traditionalist madhabs are equally abhorrent in this day and age.
With any religious community, there will be a broad spectrum, and I singled out the Salafi, if you want to call it a madhab. I believe they do away with madhabs and
but we can
created their own one.
We can informally call them like that.
Or minhaj, whatever you like to call it. I singled it out because I believe they are towards the more conservative end of the spectrum, and I would prefer that people have a more liberal, spiritual understanding of their religion.
What
and I think there are Muslims that have that, who do integrate, who look at things like, as you called it, FGM, they might call it female circumcision, and say, well, no, that's not for us. I don't know. I think it's impossible to say this is what they believe. Every Shafi believes this, every Salafi believes this, because people are human beings, and I have a lot of good friends who are inspired by their religion, and they don't take it literally, and they have it in their heart where it should be, and not as a literal word for word instruction manual for how they interact with people.
Okay. What is Islam? Is Islam what people who call themselves Muslims do and believe collectively, or is Islam the scripture and behavior of Muhammad and his teachings?
People won't like it, but for me, there are 1.5 billion different versions of Islam.
So the first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, I'd say that people in general are good. That's one of the things I believe. And I don't think if people behave in good ways, sometimes that will be due to the religious scripture they've read. A lot of the times it won't be. So I think the reason why Muslims over time lots of them have started feeling embarrassed about slavery and saying issuing rulings against it, and trying to find ways to look at Muhammad's wartime adventures as being purely defensive. That's an expression of their own good nature, and they're actually being better than the founder of their religion in that respect. So it's good good for us that most Muslims are better than what I'd say pure Islam is, which is what the
thing.
teachings
I
actually.
don't think there is a pure Islam, because anyone who picks up a book is interpreting it in their own way. That's my view. If there's someone, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. If there's a Muslim here who wants to speak with more authority than I have, then please come forward.